It's a Monday. It's time for Dan and Martin. It is great talk, and Martin always comes in hot. I'm assuming you've done that for this Monday.
I don't have any notes, Dan. This is going to be more of a loose talk.
Loose talk instead of great talk.
Well, it's going to be great, but it's not scripted, and it never is. But I usually have my little notes. I don't have my notes. A busy weekend of lacrosse, Dan. I was out of town.
Not St. Louis related. It was more kid related.
Kid related.
Yeah.
Standing in suburban Chicago on Saturday morning, and I see this guy behind me, and I said to myself, that's Scott Highmark. And I also said, there's no way that's Scott Highmark. What is he doing here? Hot shot, big shot, business guy. And I yell, Scott. Guy doesn't turn around. So I'm like, okay, it's me. It's 7 a.m. And I'm putting up my folding chair at 7 a.m. to get ready for a day of lacrosse. So I'm like, I swear. And then that guy walks away. So I texted. I said, Scott, do you happen to be in Shaw? He goes, dude, where are you? And what field are you on? It was him. And he said, my youngest daughter plays lacrosse. He said, I had no idea this world existed. He goes, you go out to these tournaments, there's thousands of people.
Oh, yeah.
There's nowhere to park. But anyway, great weekend. The 410, 410 lacrosse, they won their age bracket. Came home with a medal, Dan, so it's all good, buddy, all good.
Everybody gets a medal these days.
No, hey, that's not fair. These girls kicked ass, okay?
All right.
You're right. A lot of these kids get medals, but this was a case where we were the champions.
So where do you want to go? Mizzou football, you got City, you got St. Louis Blues winning a couple. You've got, what am I forgetting? Anybody else?
SLU women won the A-10 soccer championship. I wanted to ask you about Bob Knight because we haven't talked since his passing. Was he ever in the booth or spring training? Because he was always around with Tony.
Yeah, he was always around in spring training. I remember doing a function with him, like a Q&A with him and Tony. He was great. I also did some of the games when he was at Texas Tech, and I was doing play-by-play. That was odd.
Interesting.
Odd seeing him on the sideline of Texas Tech, and then his son was next to him. His son, everybody thought was going to take over, and he did. So it was kind of greasing the skids for that transition. But odd seeing him on the sidelines of Texas Tech.
He won in Lubbock. He
did.
He went to 4 NCAAs, and I was thinking about him, and I hate when somebody famous dies, what happens on Twitter, people immediately post a picture. Hey, one time at Dunkin' Donuts, I ran into Bob Knight.
Yeah.
Like, make it about them. And my rule is you can't post a picture unless that person in the room would know your name, like sitting next, somebody that you obviously were close to. But I only had a couple of Bob Knight encounters, and they were both Tony related, of course.
So at the ballpark.
Well, one of them was at Albert's Golf Tournament.
Okay.
In a sportscast, you get 2 to 3 minutes. I was live out at Whitmore, and I had Tony and Bob Knight as my guests. And what I remember is Tony sort of cowering, like just in awe of Bob, and like literally gave the stage to Bob. Whenever Bob said Tony was just eating up, you could tell, even with Tony's accomplishments and his ego, he totally believed Bob was this massive star, and really just like looked in awe of him. Then we did the baseball writers dinner one year when it was a roast of Tony, and Bob Knight was on the panel.
Were you on the panel as well?
I was one of the roasters. And
you remember what you said?
Yeah, well, I got up there, and first of all, I looked to my right, and it was Steve Klein and Mike Shannon. Steve Klein and Mike Shannon. I said, God damn, does anybody up here even speak English? Shannon looked like he was going to kill me. And then I looked to my left, and I see Bob Knight. He's just got his head down, and I'm thinking, he just looked miserable. So I said, hey, guys, Bob Knight is here. Shocking, he's wearing a sweater. Not that funny, but people laughed. And then he kind of looked at me at that point, now that I've engaged, I guess, the general, and he looked at me like he was going to kill me. And I just said, wow, look, he looks miserable as always. And people kind of booed and jeered because they were like, you don't mess with Bob Knight.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I was just like, nobody else is going to poke Bob Knight. I just thought I'd have a little fun with him. I have to leave to go back to Fox 2. I'm in the car. It's broadcast on KMOX. So now I'm listening to the entire program. And then Bob Knight gets up there, and he starts with, wow, it's quite a night when you're insulted by the great Martin Kilcoyne, and everybody laughs. And he said, kind of like a race against a one-legged midget. And they all like, ha, and I'm like, that's not that funny.
Commonly referred to as little people.
Yeah, I would not say that. But he did, and everyone roared, and I'm yelling at the radio, that's not that funny. That's not that funny. But I got to the station, I said, Bob Knight just ripped me, and he got my name right.
Yeah.
I thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
I've been thinking you're the hardest working guy right now in show business. You're doing a hour-long interview format type of program on 550. You do great talk, obviously. This is
The highlight
something.
of my week.
I was at Angel's Arms. Well, first of all, you were a hardworking guy. Secondly, I was at Angel's Arms. I hosted their event, which is great for foster children and families, on Saturday.
Is that what they do? I saw
Yeah.
your tweet. I meant to retweet that.
It's amazing. And
Very cool.
It started at an Einstein Bagels 23 years ago. Bess Wilfong came to me. Tom Hartnagel came to me and said they wanted to start this. I thought, yeah, right. This is going to really take off. It has taken off, and it's great. So that was Saturday. I'm emceeing the event. But the main story, outside of raising a lot of money, was how many people came up to me and said they listen to Great Talk. I don't know if you get that. I get a lot of people on the street that love Great Talk, and in particular, I think they love you, Martin. I really do.
No. I think it's growing, Dan. This has been organic. It's not scripted. That's why it's loose talk in addition to being Great Talk.
Why? This is the second time that you've changed the name.
No, it's Great Talk. I'm just joking.
I understand that, but now loose talk.
Well,
That hurts.
No, when I didn't have my notes, and you love that I have my notes, and I wanted to make it clear this show is never scripted. It used to drive me crazy. Mike and Mike in the morning. I felt like the show was scripted. I know it was very popular, and they'd get big name guests, but Mike Golick would be like, you just used the word ambidextrous. That's a big word.
So now you're ripping on me that I've turned into Mike Golick.
No. And then Greeny would immediately would say, now wait a minute, did you say ambidextrous, best known in Webster's dictionary as a definition and then on the screen it would pop up the definition of the word, and it was clearly produced and decided ahead of time, and I just hated that. So this is not scripted. That's why the people love it, Dan. It's great to hear. I love seeing you out there with all these folks and being around people.
Yeah.
You're great at that, and it's fun. Also,
you're the best, though, at it.
No.
I mean that.
No.
I always say the most talented guy in town on the media side is Martin Kilcoyne. I'm not trying to, just kiss your ass. That's really true.
Did you enjoy the Tim Ezzell bit with the kids the other day?
I
Did you see
saw
this online? So Tim Ezzell, for those who don't know, is the morning guy on Fox 2 who does kind of silly stuff. He's been doing it for years, but he's a really genuine, great person. He's a pastor, but he plays this wacky guy, and he does it well and does silly stuff. But he's also battling Parkinson's. I had him on the radio show. Best attitude you could ever have. And I said, how could you not be pissy? And how could you? He's like, God has a plan for me. And just the best attitude. So last Monday, he said, hey, can I come by your house and do a little trick-or-treating bit on TV? And I really didn't want to do it, but I was like, sure, when? He said, 6:45. I said, in the morning? Now, the kids get up around that time.
You didn't set it up. He works in the morning. I don't know if you did set that up.
He's a morning guy. Yeah, so he does his on-air appearances, whether he's at the donut shop or doing trick-or-treating. So his shtick was, hey, I'm a morning guy. I got to knock out my trick-or-treating while I can. So I said, all right, I'll come up with something. And I told the two boys, I said, do you guys want to be on TV? They're like, oh, yeah. And I said, you got to get up early, and you got to put on your costumes. And for that, they're willing to get out of bed. Anything else, they're not going to get out of bed.
No.
So the whole shtick was that he wanted candy. And I forget what made me think of this, though. You're the hardest working man. So I was up at 6:45.
Yep.
And that was the day after the World Series. So anyway, it's silly stuff. But I said I would do it. We all get a text that says, will you help it? And you're like, oh, God. But if it's somebody you're friends with, you say, sure, I'll do it. And
Great Talk is a review of the weekend a lot of times, and then looking
other than
ahead.
this particular show, which I've hijacked.
I think that I'm looking.
You're talking city or no?
No, I'm going to go back to that. Looking forward, the GM meetings are this week for baseball, and I think that this is probably one of the most important GM meetings the Cardinals have had. Free agency will start. You got to figure out exactly what you want to do. They probably have a great plan of what they want to do, and you lay the groundwork looking ahead for trades and also what you might do in free agency. The other thing is you got to figure out where the Vegas A's are going to play. You got to figure out the format. Do you want – I don't know about what you think on this. You win your division, you get 5 days off. You lose the edge. And we've seen that. Now, Brian Snicker said, no, my Braves did not lose the edge. They probably lost the edge. That's something to think about. And then the other thing they need to think about is the automated strike zone. Do you want that, or do you like the
I
human
don't,
element?
but Manfred said it's getting
coming.
real close. It's real close.
It's kind of like when the DH got to the National League. Everybody said, well, it's coming. We're just not sure when it's going to happen. I would think that it's within 2 years of happening. I watched, I'm a geek about this stuff. I will watch a minor league game.
Or just a geek. Just
Why you gotta
about
go
this
there?
stuff. Okay, about this stuff. I'm sorry.
I geek out.
Okay.
Maybe that's the
Yes.
best term for the baseball stuff. I saw a guy bounce a ball in front of the plate. It winds up being a strike.
Because it bounced over the strike zone.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the hitter's like, are you kidding me? And the umpire shrugs his shoulders and just says, this is the way it is. Sorry, I got to call
So
it
would
a
there
strike.
still be an ump back there? Is that how it would work?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So there's somebody up in the press box. It shows whether it's a ball or strike, and they have, at least at last check, they've got something in their ear that goes down to the home plate umpire, and he says ball or strike.
I hate that. Although it'd be great if Molina's the bench coach and he comes out and then he punches a computer.
Could happen.
Arguing with a computer instead of a human being. I don't like that. I don't get that it's not necessary. There's still going to be, I mean, what's sports is a human element. Somebody drops the ball. They meant to catch it. Somebody swings and misses. They wanted to hit it. The umpire thought it was a ball, thought it was a strike. I don't want it that computerized.
Did you watch the Sunday night football game?
The Bills and Bengals had it on in the background.
There was no flow to that game at times because of how many flags are being
Stoppages.
thrown. Man, it was just slow.
It was like the Mizzou game. A lot of stops. And I was watching the game at our hotel room in Chicago, and my wife was asking me, what are they doing now? I said, well, they're reviewing it. And she's like, how often can they do that? I said, too often.
Yeah.
It really cuts into the game. I went to baseball. So you started with baseball. And we love Rawlings. There's a Rawlings basketball over Dan's shoulder. I'm staring at it right now. They're in the St. Louis area. They're moving to Westport.
I didn't know that.
They're going to put a giant gold glove on the roof of the gold tower so you can see it wherever you drive.
Very quickly, is the Pujols statue still at Westport?
I think it is, but I should know that, but I don't know.
Go back to Rawlings.
Well, Rawlings, we love them, but I don't understand. The gold gloves were announced last night. It's a Sunday night
going against everything.
It was like a news dump. Like they didn't want anybody to know. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. It's all about, for us locally, we still were talking about Mizzou Saturday, rolling into Sunday. City had a playoff game. Not that Rawlings worries about that. But the NFL dominates the headlines. Why wouldn't you roll that out on a Tuesday afternoon when it's kind of dead? Weird, wasn't it? Like all of a sudden online, I'm like, wait a minute. The gold gloves came out.
Bizarre.
What? Really weird.
Because normally baseball waits till there is a dead period to go gold gloves, MVPs, manager of the year.
They kind of balance Cy Young and they balance it out.
Just to extend the season so that when you go into the offseason, that dead period, which there is a dead period outside of free agency, just trying to stay front and center with certain things that they do.
You're right. And in the general managers' meetings this week, they often say, we'll lay the groundwork for the winter meetings, which will be next month, I believe, in Nashville.
Are you going to go? You should go.
It's funny
They're
you
gonna
say
be busy.
It's funny you say that because on the TV side too, and of course representing Great Talk, I'd probably wear my Great Talk blazer.
When
walking through the lobby.
Scoops hat too.
Scoops hat, which I'm wearing by the way.
Yes, you are.
I was at the MAC a couple weeks ago. There's a young kid in there lifting weights wearing a Scoops hat.
By the way, back to Tim Izell.
Okay.
I think that you were wearing the DeSmet ski cap that we talked about last week.
It was a Cardinals. It's a weird Cardinals winter cap. It was
looked purple.
It was a wool. Don't start this again.
Did you take some heat?
A couple of people made fun of me for it, but it's not. My son has DeSmet gear.
Okay.
And then when I wore it, Dan makes a big deal out of it.
It is a big deal.
Let's go to
CBC alum.
Let's go to City with the.
I'm okay with it. They get swept. No one expected this season that the way it rolled out, so I'm okay with that one. I'm not okay with Mizzou.
Okay, well we can go from one to the next. I think what you said about baseball applied to City, where they clinched so early. They didn't play a meaningful game. They never were able to flip the switch, get it back going again, and they were kind of in this cruise control of, hey, we've had a great year. I don't know if that seeped into the room. I asked Bradley Carnell last week. I said, how do you avoid that? Hey, just happy to be here. He said it's human nature with what's happened to us. Everyone's patting you on the back. Everyone's writing columns. He said it's human nature that you're kind of satisfied. Now, he didn't say satisfied, but the inference was, yeah, guys probably do feel really good about what we've accomplished. But I kind of hate that. When you're in the playoffs, they may never be in it again. You got to go for it. Not that they weren't trying, but I think that did seep into the room. Kansas City, like we've seen the Phillies last year, all these teams in baseball that get in, that are scrambling to get in, all of a sudden get hot. It happened with Kansas City. They played desperate soccer for a couple of months, and you could feel that going into this matchup. I'm with you. I can't work myself into a lather and be outraged that this team got swept after the great year, but I was pretty disappointed. I expected more.
I did too.
I said that the regular season and the postseason, both the results surprised me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't expect anything, and then by the postseason, I did expect something.
I love the crowds. I love that you had a casual sports fan get into soccer and get into the support and follow the support, like the Luligans, and not that they are the casual fan. That's a bad example. They are fully in and invested into it. But there are other people that decided to buy season tickets and to be a part of the action down there and to see what the scene is like. I thought it was great. If you were going to draw up a first year, this was a phenomenal first year. And if you would have said this team is making the playoffs, everybody months ago would have said, count me in. That's a great season.
It was a massive hit. And we had Bill McDermott on TV last night, and he breaks down the technical part. What happened to Leuven? Is he injured? We don't know. Why did the offense really disappear late in the year? There's a lot of technical breakdown, and I think you can be upset about the playoffs. You can critique it. Didn't like some of the lineup decisions in match one. You could be critical of this playoff exit while also still be celebrating the year that was. Taylor Twellman's a good example. He's on the broadcast on Apple TV, and he's during the game. He's like Johnny Miller used to be in golf, where he's really critical, passionate about it, and he's like, City, what are you doing? You're down right now. Where is your attack? He's very critical, but it's fair. It's warranted. And then after the game, he tweeted out, what an awesome first year.
I saw that, yep.
And I think both can be true. You can, in the moment, critique strategy, aggressiveness or lack thereof, and then also step back and say, oh, well, great year. But maybe moving forward, then you take those kid gloves off. You can't always be patting them on the back saying, oh, good for you, little soccer program. They did way overachieve, and you just wonder maybe the roster, and they'll make changes, I'm sure, maybe they overachieved. And so then we got in as the 1 seed. You're like, well, maybe it wasn't truly a 1 seed in terms of dominant roster.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Now let's go to Mizzou. You said, okay, the little engine that could, so to speak. You either do or you don't in sports. Yep. You either do or you don't. And I don't like moral victories. I think that that's a little ridiculous. You say,
and they're not claiming one. Maybe some.
I think
fans
the fan base is.
I think Drinkwood said, he basically said, we don't come here to finish close.
No.
And you can't as a team.
You go
I think
for
some
it.
fans are accepting that.
I agree. And if you lose to Tennessee at home, then it becomes you go from a great season to a good season.
Yeah, the wheels start to come off.
A little bit.
No, I think how you finish now, losing to Georgia, disappointing, and if you're in that room, you thought you could win, and you had a chance to win. You were leading in the third quarter. Yeah, it's 13-10. You were leading Georgia in the third quarter. What happened after that? We can get into all the different calls by the officials, but you gave up 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, and then still down 27-21, you still are in that game. Got to pull off a touchdown drive. Brady Cook has the horrible pass intercepted by the big man Stackhouse. Obviously, that was a huge turning point, but you had a chance to win that game, and at some point, if you're Mizzou, you can't lose to Georgia every year. That's 10 in a row to Georgia. So
10 in a row now? I didn't realize that.
10 in a row to Georgia. Gary Pinkel in 2013 is the last. This is how long ago it was. Michael Sam returned a fumble for a touchdown. That's how long ago that was. At some point, you got to break through. And
boy, that's a name that I haven't heard from in a long time.
I looked up some stats last week from that game in 2013. LaDamian Washington caught a pass. Bud Sasser threw a touchdown. He threw a touchdown on a trick play or something. But it was a long time ago. James Franklin was the quarterback. And I think for Mizzou, you're going to be defined now how you finish. Okay, you got to flush that. Tennessee's really good.
Yeah.
Tennessee was leading at Alabama and collapsed. They were winning like 13, 17-0 at Alabama and then got outscored and lost. They have 2 losses at Florida. Florida's down, but it's a road game, and at Alabama. That's it. And Tennessee's hung some big numbers on Drinkwitz's team. This will define your season. I know we say that every week, but if you have the wheels come off here down the stretch, it takes away from the good that you've already accomplished.
How amazing is Nick Saban? You just made me think of Alabama. LSU comes to Alabama over the weekend, and they put just a beat down on LSU. I mean, as they started slow, now one-loss team, and you start to think college football playoff, they could get into the top 4 with a one-loss season. They're going to go to the SEC championship probably.
Play Georgia.
Yeah, and have a chance to win that game with the adjustments he makes, the great talent he has, 4- and 5-star guys. And again, you could see Alabama, benefit of the doubt with the voters and with the schedule. It's a tough schedule, the SEC, getting into the college football playoff.
And their only loss is what? Texas. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's a respectable, really respectable non-conference opponent and loss. And I wonder if Nick Saban has told his guys, and I hate when teams do this, nobody believes in us. Nobody picked. But at this point, Georgia is the darling of the SEC.
For sure.
So Alabama kind of lost the throne here a little bit. So if I'm Saban, I'm telling those kids – while handing them thousands of dollars. I'm telling those kids, legally, I'm telling those kids, boy, nobody thinks we're better than Georgia. No, that's the game we're all waiting for is Georgia-Alabama. And can Alabama get them this time?
Kind of overlooked, I don't know if you agree with this, but overlooked this weekend, the Blues. You know, back-to-back wins, Friday, Saturday, convincing fashion, New Jersey, Montreal, convincing wins. And this was kind of a team that was teetering after the road trip, and they needed to see something out of the guys that they've given 8-year contracts from. I thought they were better, and they're winning at home. I thought it was a great weekend for the St. Louis Blues, but I don't know if you agree. I think they were overlooked because of Mizzou on Saturday and some of the other things like City in the playoffs. But to win 2 straight, that's a sign of at least going in the right direction.
Yeah, when they were bad, they kind of had the stage to themselves during the week. And then the weekend rolls around. We're obsessed with soccer and Mizzou for this weekend. And you're right, quietly they scored 10 goals in 2 games, 4 on Friday against New Jersey, 6 against Montreal, including some empty netters. But this team had scored about 10 goals all season.
Exactly.
And then they do it in 2 games. And I think Doug Armstrong, Craig Berube would say, we got to get Thomas and Kyrou unlocked. We got to get Shen's going to have to score at some point. All these things, they hope now that opened the floodgates a little bit by scoring all those goals. But those were huge games because I thought the season was about to get off track. And it was a little bit like last year where they had the losing streak early. And they said we never quite could dig out. And they were sort of teetering that way. Like, you know, they were 500-ish, but all of a sudden, if you keep losing, you can't score, and they regain their momentum here a little bit, and they've still got 2 more at home before going back out on the road. I'm not going to do the schedule, Douglas.
Yeah.
And then the Blues, Arizona, Thursday. They are playing a bunch of teams they've already played. It's weird. Winnipeg, Arizona, Colorado. We just played all these teams. Not we. I'm not on the team, Dan. But
are you patting any butts like you did during the SC game?
Fake narrative by Dan that I was high-fiving.
Did anybody hear that and give you trouble about it?
Nobody has said anything about that. That's the fake Dan narrative. I was high-fiving the players. I will say on the city
pat on the butt, too.
Pat on the butt. On the city soccer, what amazed me, because we're still learning the league, is how many of these players became kind of household names. You know, my mom like, oh, I like that Roman Berkey. I'm like, really? What do you like? And, you know, Edu Louvre, and all of a sudden we know all these guys. And a year ago, they'd sign them, and we'd do a little blurb on TV, and we're like, yeah, Tim Parker's on the team.
But isn't that to the point I made earlier, the casual fan getting involved in soccer, which is great. Also, let me rephrase this. I knew that the season was long. I didn't realize it's this long.
Right.
I knew it was going to take this much time, but, man, when you're in it, it's a long season. Holy smokes.
Yeah, and this team, and this is another thing Carnell said, and I think if I was listening closely, he's pointing to a lot of off-field stuff. He said, you know, the pats on the back and the columns written about you, and he said.
Like you.
But he said a lot of appearances, a lot of, like, basically they were show ponies a little bit this year. Hey, it's our first year. Come on out to AB tonight. Come on out to the bank that sponsors us. Come on out. Hey, let's high five these. They had to do a lot of that extra stuff, which engenders you to the community. But I think that first year probably is exhausting. Hey, it's our new coach, Bradley. Hey, everybody. Hey, we're going to be partnering with this group. Hey, we've got a new announcement today. Hey, it's our official lemonade of the team. Like, there's a lot of that goes into the first year.
I would imagine that continues because they talked about when they made this thing happen of being in the community. Now, number one was getting more kids involved in soccer, which I think they've done. But the other part of this was being community stewards, making sure that they were out and getting the corporate support, which they did get, but getting the casual fan into the game, which I think they did. And part of that is doing community outreach programs and being with your sponsors. And I thought that they did that quite well.
But I don't think they'll have to do it to the extent they did this year, that first year. And I think they probably were a little bit wiped out. And your main point is it's a long season. Then you take these breaks. If Kansas City now has advanced, they've got 13 days off. There's no other playoff system in the U.S. that looks like this, where you're, all right, what do we got? If you're in KC, you're excited. This team was left for dead. They were 0-7-3. They heat up. They make a great run. They're playing well. They win a wild card game on penalty kicks. That's exciting. They beat their rivals from St. Louis. And now you're like, okay, what's next? Well, I'll tell you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's just terrible. And I guess there's no way around it because, FIFA and has this international windows. I don't know enough about it, but it stinks. So if City had advanced, we'd be sitting there going, this is terrible. So shut it down, boys. Come back next year strong.
We're coming to you from the Lou Fuse Automotive Studios. I was there on Friday night for a kids' soccer game. Place was packed, and they're doing great things with kids. Check it out at fuse.com. Also, Christmas is around the corner. That special gift, make sure you go to Lordo's Diamonds, located in the heart of Ladue.
And the pasta.
Go ahead.
We're also in the Pasta House Studios. Dan knows that. It's the great Italian restaurant that has 19 locations around St. Louis. PastaHouse.com. Order online. Keep it simple. Let them do the cooking for you. Everything made fresh daily. Outstanding food. We thank our friends at the Pasta House for sponsoring us. Of course, we both love the MAC, the Missouri Athletic Club.
I was just there this morning.
Why don't we do one of our segments from the MAC?
How about next week?
Yeah, next week. Let's record it on site.
Yeah.
I'll bring my people who look in the corner. What are they doing?
That's all right.
We're recording a podcast. Just go back to your pickleball. Don't worry about it. Okay?
I got a place that we can go.
Okay.
There's one of the restaurants there in the mornings that they
quiet.
Yeah, they shut it down and make sure that they get ready for lunch. So I want to make sure that we do it from there because we need a little quiet as we do Great Talk. A lot of fans want to get involved with this, but
they're probably going to come up to us and want to be on the show.
That's what I'm saying. We need to make sure that we are in a private, quiet place next week for Great Talk.
Also, appliance discounters, Triad Bank, Marie de Villa Senior Living, a lot of great sponsors for Great Talk. Well, I'm looking at my texted notes to myself, Dan.
You said you didn't have notes.
I didn't bring my scribbled sheet that I always have. So now I'm looking at notes that I text myself to see if we covered all the topics. I believe we did. My only question I had for you was
this ought to be good.
No, when you're with the kids or whatever, and are you the family truckster, the Clark Griswold thing? Are you obsessed on all over the years like making good time? Because my wife would say, "Why are we in a hurry?" And I'm like, "Well, I really want to make good time." She said, "Well, do we have to be somewhere?" No, but we kept stopping.
Yeah.
And so Carson's got to pee. Okay, fine. 30 minutes later, Trinity needs to go to the bathroom. Oh, my. We're in this little town. I think we're in Atlanta, Illinois. We had not made it far. That's 120, 40 miles from here.
I don't think I've heard of Atlanta.
Atlanta, Illinois.
Yeah.
It's in between Springfield and Bloomington. So you probably don't need to stop because either you stopped in Springfield or you stopped in Bloomington or you're hanging in there for Wally's, which is Pontiac, about an hour from Chicago. You've been to Wally's, the super center up there? Massive.
Absolutely.
It's got everything you'd ever need at Wally World. But then we're in this little town, so everybody's got to go to the bathroom. I want a candy bar. I want a soda. I'm like, I can't make any time here. And my wife said, oh, go over to that Dollar General. I need a notebook. And I said, what? And she's working on something. I'm like, we're now stopping for notebooks?
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't make any kind of time. So are you obsessed with that with the kids?
I'm not, but my little guy is.
Making time?
Oh, say that the game is at 8 o'clock at night. We're leaving at 6:30.
Okay.
We're leaving at 6:30 because
he likes to be early.
He loves to be early. Plus, he's a morning person, which makes it tough. So if you have an early game at, let's say, 8 in the morning,
Okay.
I mean, we're leaving at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, so mornings he's big on the eggs. Okay.
And at night. It doesn't matter what time the game is. We're leaving an hour and a half early to go to a place that's 5 minutes away.
Well, maybe he needs to stop and get a notebook on the way. Maybe that's what it is. This has been a lot of fun, Dan, and next week we'll do it on remote. And maybe there's somebody out there. I think we should come out to your place of business, and we'll do our show on site. I'll dress a little more appropriately. I'll clean up.
I think that's a great idea because we
Take
can
the show on
take the
the
whole
road.
studio, no matter what, we can go on site.
Yeah, we could do that.
All right, let's do it.
Because radio shows, and I'm being serious here, radio shows do remotes. Hey, we're here all day from Lordo's Diamonds, having a great time. Hey, Jimmy, get over here. We should do that with a business where we take great talk on the road. Let us know. Reach out.
Yeah.
It's dan@dan.com. No.
No. Dan at scoopswithdannymac.com.
All right, let's do it. This has been
a great talk.